The Navajo reservation was quiet that night, the kind of quiet that made your skin crawl. The stars were hidden behind thick clouds, and the wind carried a faint, acrid smell, like burnt hair. Sarah had heard the stories about skinwalkers since she was a child, but she never believed them, not until that night. She was staying at her grandmother's house, a small, weathered cabin on the edge of the desert. Her grandmother had warned her not to go outside after dark, especially not alone. "The skinwalkers are out there," she'd said, her voice low and serious. "They wear the skins of animals, and they can take the form of anyone they choose. If you see one, don't look it in the eyes. Don't let it know you're afraid." Sarah had laughed it off. She was a city girl, a college student studying anthropology. She didn't believe in monsters. But as the hours passed and the wind grew louder, she began to feel uneasy. The cabin creaked and groaned, and the shadows on the walls seemed to shift when she wasn't looking. Then she heard it, a sound like scratching at the door. She froze, her heart pounding in her chest. The scratching grew louder, more insistent, until it was accompanied by a low, guttural growl. She grabbed the flashlight from the table and pointed it at the door, her hand trembling. "Who's there?" she called, her voice barely above a whisper. The scratching stopped. For a moment, there was only silence. Then from outside came a voice that sounded almost human, but wrong. It was too high, too sharp, like nails on a chalkboard. "Sarah," it said, drawing out her name in a way that made her blood run cold. "Let me in." She backed away from the door, her breath coming in shallow gasps. The voice came again, louder this time, more demanding. "Let me in, Sarah. I'm cold." She turned off the flashlight and crouched behind the couch, her hands pressed over her ears. The scratching started again, faster now, more frantic. The door rattled in its frame, and she heard the sound of claws scraping against wood. Then suddenly it stopped. The cabin was silent, the air thick with tension. Sarah waited, her heart pounding until she couldn't take it anymore. She crept to the window and peered outside. At first, she saw nothing but darkness. Then slowly, a figure emerged from the shadows. It was tall and hunched, its body covered in matted fur. Its face was twisted, a grotesque mix of human and animal features, and its eyes glowed a sickly yellow in the moonlight. It stared at her, its lips curling into a grin that revealed rows of jagged teeth. Sarah stumbled back, her scream caught in her throat. The creature tilted its head, as if studying her, and then it let out a sound that was half laugh, half snarl. It turned and disappeared into the night, leaving only the sound of its footsteps echoing in the distance. The next morning, Sarah found tracks outside the door, large clawed prints that led into the desert. Her grandmother examined them, her face pale. "It was a skinwalker," she said. "You're lucky it didn't get inside." Sarah didn't argue. She packed her bags and left that afternoon, vowing never to return. But sometimes, late at night, she still hears the scratching at her door, and sometimes she swears she hears that voice, whispering her name.